are live, guys. Welcome to the show. We are having a special guest. Like I said, we're going to start doing special guests once a month. Try to, anyways. So I suck at introductions, as you guys know. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we're going to get into the topic today.
What is going on, everyone? I'm Jermaine here at Mainstream Fishing. Just another kayak angler, bank angler, regular dude fishing. That's it. Nothing fancy over here. Just got on the tournament scene this year. Nothing great. I think I did one team one where we kind of won first because my teammate put in all the work. So I technically got a trophy for that. And then I placed one. I think I came in like 8th or 9th in the top 10. So I qualified for the Knucklehead bass fishing tournament. So I'll be heading down to, Huntsville, Alabama in like
Yeah, I think
2
it's
weeks.
Huntsville.
So that's fun. That's like the highlight of my career right now. I actually looked at the numbers of that today. I'm not tooting my own horn, but 60 anglers out of 416 made it down. So my boy was like, oh yeah, why don't you look at the numbers? And I looked at it today and I kind of was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. So
I can tell you a person that did qualify for it. So just say he beat me, but I ended up. It's funny, dude. I was in it for a while, and then one of the dudes that was in the group that I was in just went on a freaking tear. Like I had like a 21 and a handful of 18s, like just enough, and he came out with like 4 22s, like boom, like just slam. And I was like, I'm done. I'm in Vermont. I'm done. I don't have 22s. Like,
yeah, it's hard.
That was crazy, too.
That was the biggest part of it. Like, it was so interesting to me is like you're fishing with guys from all over the country. Yeah. So I think it was all public water. I think was it private waters too, or just straight public water wherever you can fish?
I think it was public.
Yeah,
I think it was stock KBF rules, as I think really.
Yeah, what they kind of mimicked off of, but it was interesting. I got lucky.
So, dude, it sucks because I wanted to do it, and then honestly though, then I started pricing it out, and I was like, unless you win, it's really an expensive content trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it comes down to like you got a lot of money spent to drive down there and compete, but it's a learning experience, and that's
I feel like if you stay on the campsite, it's actually not bad. I think it's like $50-$60 a night.
Oh, okay, that's
on
not
the
too
campsite because I'm gonna literally camp out.
That's what I was gonna do.
Pull my car up. My boy's coming with me. He's got 2 sleepies. He's got 2 tents. I'm like, okay, cool. That's all we need. I just need a place to rinse my tail and relieve myself, and then we can bring food and stuff like that. It's gonna be like, I know there's gonna be some ladies down there, but it's gonna be just like a bro event is how I'm looking at it. I don't really care about cleanliness and all that stuff. I'm going fishing.
Yeah, dude, I did it. So I went down to last year. My first like real live event was there was a Rhode Island. There was a Big Bass Challenge, and it was in Rhode Island. And I cheated basically to get into it. And PJ's heard this story. So basically, it was the top 2 anglers of basically all the Northeast states, and there's only one guy in Vermont that had entered. So like the last week that you could enter into this tournament, I just jumped into it and caught a single fish, and I was in.
And then you were in.
Because all you had to do is enter a fish and qualify. So I
call it cheap. I think it's just awareness, buddy. Good job.
I was like, you know what, dude, this is interesting. I'm like,
that's great awareness.
And being a content creator, I was like, dude, I could go to Rhode Island and just fish and make content. So then I fished. I'd end up doing like a pre-fishing. Like I went down there a couple days ahead of time, basically. And, dude, you don't realize how different states that are right next to you are for fishing.
Oh yeah.
It's insane. Like I live in Vermont, so I think, Massachusetts and Rhode Island are probably the same. I kind of knew Rhode Island would be a little bit different, being a smaller state and all that, and being closer to the ocean and all that. But like, dude, it was Halloween weekend. That tournament was in Rhode Island, and we were fishing
weekend. I'll tell you that.
and it was basically a road runner type of tournament. There was 5 lakes. You could pick one. But 2 of them were unfishable because they had run them so low that you couldn't even launch.
Okay.
Like the one ramp that I wanted to fish, it was 30 yards off the bottom of the ramp. Like the actual, you could see the end of the concrete, and then there was another 20 or 30 yards before you could get to the water.
So you would have had to like
drag it.
Yeah.
And even at the event, so the event place that most of us ended up fishing, we all pre-fished it, and when we came back from pre-fishing, it was lower. And then the day of the tournament, while we were fishing, they were still running the dam. Like, I think somebody forgot to shut off the dam because there was like jet skis that are on the shore. There was boats like still on there, like, you know, those like lift docks. Yeah. There was boats still on those, and the water was not under the ramp. Like, they ran that thing so low that when we came back, we actually had to go off on the shore, which was water when we went out, and actually had guys were helping each other carry our kayaks back to the ramp.
That's nuts.
Like 30 yards back to the ramp. You couldn't even get to the ramp at all.
That's like 15, 20 feet. That's a lot of water.
Dude, it was insane how much water came out. And I don't know why. I don't know if they turned the dam up, if the dam was broken or what was going on. But it was all, dude, my kayak it looked like I had just gone like down a hill with it. It was just covered in mud. It was awful. But I placed 4th. But again, it was one of those deals where it was one fish. That was kind of a cool concept because it was the biggest bass.
Mm-hmm.
There was no bag. It was just the biggest bass. And because half the field couldn't fish the lakes they wanted, they had to fish basically one of 2 lakes. And I caught a 17-inch bass that took 4th. And that was like in the last hour. So it was like really stressful tournament. But what I was trying to say is like the travel thing, dude, it's even if you have to spend the money to go down there, I'm thinking about next year up here. Maybe we should almost hook up and do this. So there's a tournament trail in Massachusetts called EKF, and they do one on Cayuga every year. And that would be one. They have a campground right there. Cayuga has a state park right there on the lake. And it's a little bit pricey because it's like $100 I enter.
Okay.
But there's
definitely some sticks in there too. I know it.
Dude, there's some good. Oh, I mean, to be fair, there's some really good anglers in that trail. But the good thing about that one is you don't have to be a member. It's just they're all opens basically.
Okay, nice.
So you have to pay $100. So you have to pay $100, but you don't have the $50 or $70 membership fee to be part of the trail to go. So it kind of works out.
Yeah.
They do a Champlain event too.
Okay. I've never been to either, and I live in New York. I'm terrible.
That's what I'm saying, dude. So it might not be a bad idea
for me though. Like it's 6-7 hours to get up there. Like
you're probably
on the other side of the state.
Right. How far are you from like
how
Cayuga?
big New York is.
How far are you from like the Finger Lakes?
6 hours.
So yeah, you're further than me.
7 hours. Yeah, it's a trip. I'm 20 minutes from the Bronx, New York. Like I'm 20 minutes from the city. Like I was younger. Me and my guys used to go into the city all the time for just the night and then drive back. You know, I was nothing.
PJ, you should do it too, actually, dude.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, if it's 6 hours for him,
it's a trip.
Almost 20 hours for me. I'm just guessing.
Where are you at, PJ?
Indiana.
Oh yeah. That's a trip. It's a trip.
Yeah,
it's a trip.
I mean, I'm not opposed, but I mean that's my whole vacation right there.
Yeah, we got to plan that out. Nice. Yeah.
Are you gonna get into any of those adventure series, PJ?
I'm gonna try. Yeah, definitely looked at those there. I was just telling my wife last weekend about it. You know, I said I can't wait. I'm releasing the schedule and all that there, and I can't wait to see if I can make some of those. How my work schedule and how those schedules all line up.
There's a bunch of guys I know on the tournament scene in down in that Indiana area. Geez, I couldn't get that out. JT Hickman. What are they? Hickman Outdoors now. He's big with the whole KBF scene and the whole they do the monthlies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then who's the other guy? I think Tweezy Bass Fishing, Antoine.
Okay.
He's down there too. Yeah, he's down there too in that area. He fishes the Indiana series. So, a couple guys down there.
Dude,
this is all new to me, just moving here, so I'm gonna really kind of figure. I've only been here 2 months now, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're learning the lay of the land, brother.
That's all I'm doing right now. I went and did some exploring last weekend. It kind of rained. It's been raining on and off here the past 2 weeks. Yeah. So last weekend I got out and I did some exploring. I go to work the next 2 weekends, then I'm off for the next 2 weekends. So the 18th and the 25th, I'm going to get out, do some fishing here in Indiana on the 18th. And then probably the 25th, I'm going to venture up and fish Lake Michigan and start chasing some chrome fish up there, get out to the steelhead.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, dude. If I don't go down south this winter, I should almost just go meet you in Michigan.
Exactly.
Take the bass boat and go chase some of them smallmouth, dude.
Yeah.
Now I would meet you halfway and meet you on Lake Erie because I know more places to fish for smallies on Lake Erie than I do Lake Michigan.
Works for me.
And I mean,
my boat's just a little aluminum, so it's gonna have to pick the right time of year.
Good question. Do the Great Lakes ice over?
They ice up, but they don't ice completely over. But
you can technically still get out there and like they'll bite. You got to go slow, I imagine, and certain spots and dragging an Ed rig or a drop shot. But like essentially, you could technically get out there and catch smallies all year.
It would be rough, depending on the wind. But depending on the winter, a lot of the bays they freeze over, like your bays, Prescal Bay.
Okay.
Places like that. There is open water that you can get out on if you have a dry suit and you want to venture out in there. Yeah, you could do it. I've never been that crazy.
So like, what's the latest you fished up there? Like,
I fished year round on Lake Erie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, but see, I'll switch over. I'll bass fish, and then like now in October, I'll start fishing for walleye.
Okay.
And then October, November, I'll switch over and start fishing for steelhead. And then after that then I'll go back to fishing for bass come April, because April and May you get out on Lake Erie. And I mean, it's just, if you hit it right, you hit the right scene, the right bite, the right time. I mean, you can go cast for fish 15, 20 fish in a row, cast for cast. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's probably the only time of the year that they're shallow too.
What's that?
It's probably the only time of year that they're like super shallow too, because the way those Great Lakes work is it's crazy. Like the shoreline, you're in like 15 feet, like you go out like a mile and a half before it starts to get like, they're not like, glacier lakes and stuff like that where it's a bowl. Like I know like Lake Ontario out of Mexico Bay, you got to go 3 miles to get into 100 feet of water. Like it's just a gradual. So those fish come up shallow for the spawn, but then they go out deep after, and then you got to go find them. But
so that's what's really nice about that, to get such a variety of fish in the Great Lake, that when something is spawning, generally something else is coming in to feed on those spawning fish. And so, the walleye are spawning, the bass will come in. The bass are spawning, the walleye will come in. Yep. When the steelhead are spawning, the walleye are coming in. So, I mean, it's just one big cycle, and you just kind of pay attention to the reports. If the guys are being honest with their reports, and you get up there, and the fishing can be absolutely amazing.
What's crazy too is the problem with the Great Lakes, if you've never fished them, is the weather, is the unpredictableness of the weather. You can be out there completely dead calm and then be in 4-foot waves in 40 minutes. That's what sucks. So you have to, like, especially that winter time, like in the summertime, it's scary, but in the wintertime, it's life threatening because you start taking waves over the kayak with 40-degree water.
Yeah.
You're going to have a problem real fast.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to go out on my kayak anymore. It's getting to be, it's like,
Mine's done.
Yeah, I think I'm literally going to take it. I went out on Thursday because it was 75, and I put my hand in the water, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be in that.
Yep.
I was like, I don't want to do that. So
I can imagine your water temps are similar. So I was out last weekend. That's why I put up that whole freaking post that I put about retiring the kayak for the season, dude. It was water temps were 54.
Yeah.
And the problem is I'm a fat guy, so there's always water in my kayak. And my feet were froze when I got out the water, dude. I was like,
I'm a big fella
too.
I'm a big fella too. It's almost always water in my kayak too.
So, and even with those NRS boots, dude, my feet were numb when I got out of the water. And I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
That's it. That's why I was like, yeah, I don't know if I could do this. Because we went out like a month ago, and there was no sun, and it started raining, and I was like, whoa. I was in one of these. I was in a sunshade like this, long sleeve, and I'm like, hold on. I need an undershirt? Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's about time, because it's just, I don't know, it's just not really worth it.
What's the latest you fished like from a kayak, PJ? Have you like just done all year, or do you? Because I know you do, like the steelhead and stuff. You do like rivers.
Yeah. Right? I fished into November for my kayak for steelhead. I'm gonna say probably right around like the week before or the week of Thanksgiving. I've decided to put it up after that there, but I was mostly staying in like the creeks and the rivers right there that run off of Lake Erie, trolling for steelhead, and I felt pretty comfortable doing something like that there because I was pretty much protected. There was really no waves. There was no big boaters. And like I said, I was just paddling back and forth, so I was keeping myself kind of warm, and I feel, my kayak, I feel pretty stable in my kayak. So, but I mean, after November, it starts chilling down there a lot. So I didn't do it after that.
For those of you listening who aren't in the north, what you need to understand is that we go from mid 80s degree water, and within a month we're down to 60. It's drops right out. It's from like September to October, you go from summer to winter. There is no fall. There's no fall pattern in the Northeast.
Yeah, there's none. That's it.
There isn't one. That whole fall pattern everybody talks about. It doesn't happen.
That's why everyone's like, oh, I love fall fishing. They turn back on. It's such a gradual. Like, oh, I'm like, it's not gradual. It's not like.
It's a week.
2-3 weeks. Like the beginning of October, you were probably in shorts.
Yep.
These last couple days, we had a weird, very weird warm stretch, and like at work, I had to go to work today, and we were making fun of some guy because he came in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yep.
We were like, look at this guy. He looks like a weirdo. What are you doing, bro? It's the end of October. Are you holding on to it? Like, It's cold.
Yep.
It's cold.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
I don't think I took I had a pullover on at work today. I didn't take it off all at once. So.
Yeah, no, it's what's crazy is like, that's the thing that bugs me is that the spawn and the fall, I always miss it because I can only fish weekends.
Like that.
So it's always like, I'll hear about guys that are like, oh man, I was slamming them on Wednesday. And I'm like, oh, awesome. So Saturday is going to be great fishing. No, they're already pulled out.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Something changed. We got a nice cold front. It's terrible.
Yep. And it's like, I actually had my best day yesterday that I've had all month. Yeah. And that was 4 largemouth.
So my best day this whole season, got it. Craziest thing is I got it all on footage. And I lost the memory card.
Oh.
Been there.
Yep.
I caught a 5-pounder.
Where.
I caught like almost probably a 6-pounder, and it was like one of those days where like I had an electrical issue with my kayak. I had all kinds of problems with stuff, and it was the first fish I caught, and it was a good fight. Fish came out of the water, like all kinds of like everything you would want for a content video, and the memory card was starting to get full. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to swap this memory card so I don't lose this data. And I put my finger in the thing and it went right into my fucking lake. Like it shot out of my car, out of my camera, ended up in the water, and I just watched it sink to the bottom. And I'm like, what are you going to do at that point? It's not even like I could stick my net in because it's a micro card. It's just going to fall through my net.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to recover that card. So I lost it. But
you're just like,
it's funny because the best day I had was a tournament. I did a multi-species. They did a bass tournament. So the Jigs and Bigs tournament, they did like a 1 day catch 'em all tournament. So it had to be anything over 12 inches, as many fish as you could catch in from 8 to 3.
Okay.
And I have a lake by my house that is it's actually literally so overpopulated with bass that they raised the limit to 5. Because it has these stunted bass, but it's perfect for that kind of tournament because the biggest bass in there, I mean, I've caught a 5-pounder in there, but your average bass is 14 inches and it's just cookie cutter 14-inch every day, all day long. You'll catch 20, but you're just going to catch 20. They're all the same size. But for that tournament, it was awesome. I caught 190 inches. It was like almost 200 inches total. In that time span, and it was all Ned rig. So it was I was tired at the end of it because it was like constantly casting a Ned rig and fighting them with a spinning rod, but they're all little. Like the best day size wise was like one of my first days this year.
Yeah.
Literally, I caught a 5-pound, a 7-pound, and a 6-pound. Boom, boom, boom to start my season out, and I was pumped. I was like, "This is going to be the best year ever." And then I really didn't get much size.
My year started the same way. So you remember, if you remember the beginning of the year, Valentine's Day was the first day that it got to 60 degrees.
Yep.
And me and my boy, I remember I was off. He was off too, and I called my girl at work. I'm like, "Hey, it's really nice out today. I know it's Valentine's Day, but I'm gonna go fishing." And she, what? Look, I swear to God, I'll be home on time. I'll be home by the time you get home from work. I swear to God. So she's like, if you're not home, I'm gonna be like pissed. I'm like, all right, no doubt, I got you. Don't worry. I was home on time, but I remember I go out and like I'm just dragging a jig slow. Like it was more for the mentals at that point. Like,
yep.
Open water. First nice 60-degree day.
Yep.
I literally hook something and I like pull up and it gets tight. I set the hook. I didn't set my drag from the winter. And it just goes zzz. Oh. I watched the fish come up and turn on its side and just like, I guess it just like spit it out. I'm like, okay, I'm not even mad. I'm not even supposed to be out here fishing. It's February. Right. I pitch back in. Hits it again. I'm like, no way. I set the hook. I'm like, oh, okay. It didn't fight, and it just comes up on its side. I'm like, that's a 4.5, 5-pound fish. Yep. No fight in it because it's cold. I'm like, my boy pats down the bank. He's like, there's no way that's your first fish of the year. I'm like, I think it's going to be a great year, buddy. Yep. And then literally after the spawn, I don't think I caught any, like, it took me a while after the spawn to catch something over 3 pounds.
Dude, I caught a ton. So I caught bigger fish this year than I did last year for sure. But that's also due to the fact that because of the content creation side, I spend 16 hours a weekend every weekend. So I've got a pretty good scouting report at this point, and I have local lakes around me that just have big fish. But like that first spawn day, dude, I was so pumped. And the thing is I caught my PB. I caught on a freaking mag draft.
That's so fun.
So, dude, it was like probably the 5th cast I'd ever done with a mag draft because I never even had tried a big swim bait. I just wasn't really into it. And I was like, you know what? This is basically a fucking glorified Kitech. Like, it's a big Kitech that you fish slow. That's really what a mag draft is.
That's what it is.
So I was like, okay, I can do this. And dude, that thing, when they hit those,
oh my God,
when they hit a swim bait or a big swim bait or a Kitech or a big plastic like that, they don't nudge it. They don't swallow it and slowly. They hit that like it's stole its freaking TV and you're trying to get it back. Like they stole their car and you're ripping them back out of it. Like that thing,
it's crazy.
dude, they smoked that bait. And I was like, literally in my video, you see it. I'm like, holy crap. And then I'm like, that was on the mag drive. Like it clicked in my head. Like, why did they hit like that? And I'm like, oh, because that was on the mag draft.
Yeah.
And then and the thing is, I got lucky because I didn't even hook him that good.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about those, the way the treble hook is in those, is I skin hooked him.
Yeah.
But luckily I got enough under there that it just pulled him in. And it was ended up being like a 7-pounder.
Nice.
But it was like, and then I caught a 6-pounder and like a 5-pounder after. And then that lake after that, I didn't catch anything bigger than a 3.
That's funny. My guys just sent me a little care package. If you want, I can grab it. They sent me a care package to go down to the Knucklehead tournament. They sent me a mag draft, but I was fishing the coal shad at my Lake X. I feel like everyone's got their own Lake X.
Oh yeah, that's this lake I was talking about.
Yeah, I was fishing my Lake X, and there's a good population of pickerel in there, and that's my first and only like 6. I was fishing the coal shad, 6-inch swim bait.
Yep.
I guess it's in that category now. So
I want to try that because I heard you can fish it a little bit faster.
Yeah. It's nice. You can just do the change of pace with it. It's not just like, and for me, I got ADD. It's hard for me to like, just sit there and like, okay, found the good bait. Like, I need to like, I got to do something, twitching it or something like, so, I do the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And like literally with the call shed, I did the 1, 2, 3, stopped. And I went to go again, and like you said, this pickerel just said hi.
Yep.
Loaded on. I was like, oh my god.
Yep.
It's one of those nice. You get to set it. It was fun.
Oh, the home run hook set's my favorite part of bass fishing, dude.
It's fun.
It's probably the same thing with like a steelhead too. You probably have to really
never caught
hook those hard, right, PJ? Because I imagine those are not easy to set a hook into.
Depends on the size of them. The bigger ones, yeah, I mean they're gonna hit like a freight train. So, and when they hit, you definitely got to set it. Now sometimes they will come up there and do like a little head knock. If I'm I'll fish with like a crankbait, or a lipless. They'll actually do the head knock. They'll hit it like to knock it out, a bait fish, and then they'll come back there and they'll hit it, and then you can just set the hook. You don't really have to set it too hard because they're already taking off with it the opposite direction, so you just kind of set the hook. But the bigger ones, you get into a 10-pounder, 12-pounder, you want a good hook set, and you can tell the difference between a juvenile and a mature adult.
They get big though, don't they?
Pardon?
They get big, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anything over 30 inches is going to be in the 10 to 12 pound range. Okay. You get underneath that, 24 inches is probably going to be, 5, 6, 7 pounders. I mean, they're still good size right there.
The thing about steelhead is they're like if you put them in a bass category, they're more like a smallmouth than a largemouth. They're more agile. They're more athletic. So they tend to fight a little different. You know what I mean? So
if you get a fresh one that comes out of the lake, I always call it river dancing because we're all fishing on the river, and man, they'll come up, and they're slapping and going down and coming back up, and I mean, they'll make 2 or 3 runs depending on what line that you're using. I go a little bit lighter than most guys. I'll probably fish like an 8-pound test, maybe a 6 sometimes.
8 pounds.
Yeah. And you're not horsing them in. You're not horsing them in with an 8-pound test. So they'll come up and
bass fishing. I hate it. I'm not.
Dude, see, it's funny is when you think about bass fishing, right? That's one thing I always found funny. So I come from king salmon fishing background. Like that's what we did growing up. My dad has a 25-foot fiberglass. Used to go out on Lake Ontario and do king salmon fishing, right? So 30-pound fish, right? You only use 20-pound mono to catch those. Big game was designed for salmon and steelhead fishing. That's what they created it for. So like when we talk about using 50-pound braid, is actually kind of funny if you think about the fact that we're trying to use a 50-pound test line to catch a 6-pound fish.
Yeah.
When you're catching a 35 to 50-pound salmon.
Well, that's more for the vegetation.
With 20-pound mono.
That's more for dragging the fish out of the muck.
That's what it is.
That's
the
really
difference
what it is.
The difference is that what we're doing, you need to be able to bushwhack to get the fish back out.
Because like open water smallmouth fishing, you can get it like, like that doesn't bother me. Like I've never done it because most of the time I'm like, even my lake, there's a lot of rocks and like, so the prime example in that video I lost, I was bank fishing. I hooked a bass, smartest thing I've ever seen a bass do. So like, how you're standing on like a rock bank and like some of the rocks go in the water. This bass, I on everything I love, it swam straight at me, went in between the rocks, and then started swimming. And I literally, and this is why I wanted that video so bad. I looked at the fish and I was talking to him. I was like, no, you didn't. There's nothing I can do right here. I'm going to pull and just try. And as soon as I started pulling, he was swimming out a good like 2-3 pound fish. He's swimming out and I'm watching him. I'm like, I'm going to pull. I stopped him. Line broke. Yep. And I was like, and this was the crazy part about that day. And I knew they were on spawn. I literally went. It happened to me twice. I broke off on 2 fish. I had 10-pound test on. I was like, okay, they're fighting. Number one, they're fired up and they're fighting hard. So I'm just going to go get my jig rod. I went and got my jig rod, pitched back into the same spot and caught like 2 fish. One was smaller. One was like a 2-pounder. And then one was like a 4 or 5. And I was like, okay, that was the male and that was the female. Yep. And then like I literally like started fan casting around. 3 4-pounders, 3 4-pounders. I was like, oh, this is crazy. This is literally crazy. And of course, that's the memory card I lost. But
dude, so I had one today or yesterday do the same thing, only with my trolling motor. So I had a bass. I caught it on the right side of my boat, and that bass took a beeline under my boat around my trolling motor. He swam between my trolling motor and my boat and hooked back towards the shore. Wrapped himself around the trolling motor. That I actually just got done editing that video, and then I had to lift my trolling motor and handline that thing in because it was literally looped around the shaft of my trolling motor. And I had a smallmouth do the same thing to me, but with a log. I had him go under the log and then come back out on top of the log.
Yep.
The thing is, I'm like, we give them too much credit to an extent. But what it is it's an instinctual thing. That worked one time. You're not the first person he's done that to.
Yes.
That's what it is. I think it comes down to he did that to somebody else.
Yeah. And I got hooked before. I did this and I got free. Okay. So.
Because the salmon will do the same thing. When I was king salmon fishing back when we were out in the big water, they would swim for the prop.
Yeah.
When you get them close to the boat, we were literally in a boat at times going like this. And the salmon is following the boat in a complete 360. Yeah. They're chasing that prop because they know if they can get whatever is pulling them into that, it's going to break it. They don't necessarily have the intelligence to know that, but I think it's just that happened by luck one time, and genetically they remember, okay, if I do this again, it's going to work. It's nuts how so do you catch mostly? You said you got a lot of rocks, so you're probably predominantly smallmouth lakes, or do you have a lot of largemouth too?
It's like a mix. This last year I kind of went to some spots with that have both, but there's a lot of largemouth lakes around me. It's like if I go like up north, I mean, I would say it's mixed. There's like a lot of spots with just largemouth though.
Okay.
But there's
because normally when you get a lot of hard bottom like that, like I don't know, I find that like largemouth tend to live in the slop and smallmouth tend to live in that more like clean rocky bottom.
Yeah. But I feel like there's definitely a good amount of smallmouth lakes that are readily accessible. Yep. That's what I'll say. But there are plenty of lakes that like I feel like 2 years ago, I only fished like one lake with smallmouth. And then this year, I was kind of like 50-50.
It's an addiction.
Brandon? How
The
you
problem
doing,
with smallmouth is an addiction. So like
Oh, yeah.
I
Big
never
time.
targeted smallmouth ever. Like I basically started targeting them last year because I didn't even realize that there was like I live in Vermont, so obviously I know there's smallmouth in Champlain. Like that's
Yeah.
obvious. That's what it's famous for. But a lot of the ponds and stuff around me are mostly heavily vegetation,
Yeah.
heavy cover, and you're like by July you're flipping mats and you're
Yeah.
fishing wood and you're using a jig.
Oh.
So the thing is we have a lot of lakes that I didn't ever realize that were 50-50. Like half of the lake had like the lake I was on yesterday. The northern part of that lake has a lot of smallmouth in it. The southern part of the lake is shallow and grassy and it has a lot of largemouth in it. So it's like a mixed lake. But a lot of times what I find is like a lot of the lakes around here, if you've got big largemouth, the smallmouth can't compete. So then they're small and they're all right to catch, but you can only catch so many 10-inch, 12-inch smallmouth that
Yeah.
it just isn't as
It's
fun
not the same.
when you can go throw a Texas rig Senko into a lily pad and pull a 4-pound largemouth. It's hard to get excited about the 12-inch smallie. So I didn't do it, but then I started finding like the lake I was on yesterday is the place I caught my first, like I caught a 4.5-pound smallmouth out of there. It's the
Oh,
first time
yeah.
I caught like what I call like a decent, like worth charting as a PB smallmouth.
Yeah.
And the same day, I also caught like a 4-pound largemouth on the opposite end of the lake. And I was like, okay. And I will not, that's another, like, I have a lot of lake X's, but that's because I live in a place where there's a lot of lakes, but they're like 300-acre small ponds.
Yeah.
And if I start advertising what I show on my videos, I'm not going to be able to park there because there's like a 20 parking lot spot boat ramp.
Yeah.
So I try not to talk about it, but there's
You're
a lot of those little lakes.
Be quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. There's a lot of these places. Like I actually get yelled at. You ever been yelled at in the water for recording?
Yes.
Dude, I get yelled at all the time.
This old timer, what are you doing?
I'm gonna ruin this lake, you people.
Yeah, he was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, I'm recording myself fishing. Ah. I'm like, what's wrong with that? Well, you're going to go show everybody and everyone's going to come here. And then there's going to be so many people here. I'm not even going to be able to fish here, buddy.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, my man, just so you know, I'm not like that yet. Like at the time, I only had like 300 subscribers. I only have 550 now. Like I'm still not like, wow. You know, I'm like, I'm not Debo or something. And not only that, I'm going to say like 80% of the people that follow me don't even live in the state. Yep. I got like 15 or 20 people, and those people probably talk to me or have probably been fishing with me, so they probably already know where I'm at anyway. Or I probably sent them the picture in some type of group chat format, like, yo, I just caught a tank over here. So they probably already know anyway. So
dude, I have a small lake by me. It's less than, I think it's like 80 acres, right? And this is not one of those places that's like, it's got the occasional, like maybe once a year, you'll hook into a 5-pounder. The rest of it's 15 inches, right? But they fight like crazy because it's one of those places that no one bass fishes because it's so small.
Yeah.
And I had a guy on the dock, and it was spawn too, mind you. So I wasn't like, I'm very like probably more so a baby when it comes to spawn. Like I don't, if I hook a fish, I'm like back in the water. Like I don't even like make a big video out of it because I'm like, hey, look, I caught a fish, and it's like, I want that thing back in the water as quickly as possible so I can get back on its bed, make more babies. Yeah. And this guy sees me hold a fish up to my camera, put it back in the water, and he comes running out on his dock, and he's like, you people are going to ruin this lake. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, you tell everybody where you're fishing. I'm like, I've never said the name of this lake. And he's like, well, they're going to see my camp. And I'm like, if they know your camp by at the time I had a crappy GoPro too. I'm like, if they could identify your camp at 40 yards in the background of me holding up a fish, they've been here. So they already know what this place is.
So they already know where it is. Exactly.
There's no way. I'm like, I live here and I couldn't identify the footage from the background of my footage of where I was.
I've never looked at the background of anyone's footage. If you do it, you have way too much free time. If it's that serious, I'm sorry.
I will say there's a guy that fishes Champlain up here that I've seen a couple of things where I was like, yeah, I know where he is. But other than that,
but that's like you just literally noticed a landmark.
Yeah,
I noticed. Big and noticeable. You're like, oh, I've seen that barn. Oh, I've seen like, but it's something big. Like, I don't think I would like this guy. You're like, oh, I've seen that dock with that white and blue boat.
Yeah,
Jim's house. Like,
Good luck finding that on Google Earth. The guy, you're like, where was he fishing?
Yep. People gotta take it easy, but there's always gonna be the Karens and Kyles of the world. So.
Oh yeah. We gotta get PJ with some cameras. We gotta get you GoPro rigged up, buddy.
I have two, and I just never think about taking them ever.
Once you do, it becomes a sickness, and then you feel wrong when you go fishing without it. So just keep it. It's almost you either make the decision and just live with one or the other. You're good.
Yep.
Because I'm telling you, I feel like
naked without a camera.
Yeah, I feel like I did something wrong when I go fishing without a camera. I'm like, oh man, like
I've gone
I feel
back
like
home. Yeah, I've gone back home to get
40 minutes
batteries.
40 minutes.
Yep.
I literally got like halfway there and was like,
I might
catch a BB. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm not gonna get the morning bite, but it's okay.
Yep. I had my kayak set up, was getting ready to launch it, go to mount my camera on the thing, I reformat what I do is I offload my footage, I stuff my camera card back in my camera, and I have a backpack, and I just put it back in that so I don't forget the camera. Got there, went to reformat the camera, and had no memory card in it. So I had no memory. I couldn't do anything. I had a camera, but no memory card. So I literally have my rods and my rod holders, my baits all over my kayak. My kayak was unstrapped. I was getting ready to back it in the trailer and stripped it all back down, drove home, grabbed a memory card, and got back out. But what the thing is, I will say, for people who don't do content, even if you don't have any intentions of ever putting it on YouTube, I'll tell you one advantage to pointing a camera at yourself and recording it while you're fishing is you thought you caught that fish on a black and blue Senko and it was June bug, or you thought you caught a fish off of that tree, but it wasn't that tree. It was the lily pad 20 feet down. But while you were fighting the fish, you drifted to that tree.
Mm-hmm.
You get this information, or like what you were saying about how you reel your baits in. What I noticed was I thought that I was doing a steady retrieve. But when I watched the video back, I stopped and scratched my nose and then started reeling again, and they hit.
There it is. Yep.
And you pick up those little things that you're like, why am I not catching any fish on this bait after you catch 4 in a row and then all of a sudden something changes. What changed? I switched rods. I put that same bait on another rod because I bird's nested this one.
Slowed down. I watched.
You realize this little like.
Yep. Oh my God, Tara called me. I slowed down and I literally, in the time it took me to go, I remember I was watching a video. She's called me. I stopped, put my rod under my arm, took my phone out. Hey babe, how are you? Hold on, I'll call you back. And I watched it back and I'm like, they wanted me to slow down. Yep. He was probably on it, and I kept bouncing it, and he's going, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? And then I let it sit, and he goes, oh, okay, I want to eat that.
Yep.
And I've done it so many times. A second to do that, and then she called me, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
It's like a free video journal. The other thing is like the bait too. Like I don't know how many times wacky rig, right? Wacky rig's probably my favorite way to fish a Senko. But the problem with wacky rigging is the bluegills hit it and they rip it, right? So then you're just on autopilot. You cast it in, bluegill ripped it. You reach in your bag and you're like, I can't know how many black and blues right now. I'll just throw a June bug on. But in your head, you forgot you switched to June bug. So then the next time you go there, you're fishing black and blue, thinking that was black and blue, or you're fishing green pumpkin when you're fishing a slightly different, or you're fishing a max scent versus you see on the camera, you watch yourself pull that package out and put that bait on, and you go, that wasn't the black and blue. and that was
That's
a different
so
color
funny you
bait.
say that, because I fish a specific Ned rig more now because I watched myself in a tournament. What was I using? I don't remember what I was using, but I went to, dang, what is it? I can see the packaging. Holy X Zone, the X Zone Ned.
Yep.
Green pumpkin blue with the blue in it, with the blue flick in it. I literally I was at Candlewood, and that play. I think that's where I finished like 9th or 8th or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a great way to like, and I actually started like charting it. So like I actually have an Excel sheet now. I'll send it to you. You should see it. It's stupid. I've got graphs and like freaking all this data on it now. Like I literally have it done by like what lake has the average largest fish, like what color catches larger fish, what color has more percentage than like I got
You're
like
enough with it.
stupid technical with it. But
Yeah.
what I found was what I didn't, by documenting it, what I learned wasn't what I expected, which is what's crazy. So like I thought June bug was my color.
It's not.
Absolutely hardcore, caught all the biggest fish I've ever caught on June bug. This year, black and blue has like 80% of my catches. On worms, all plastics. Like we're talking Ned, worms, freaking swim baits. I started buying black and blue swim jigs because of it, because I used to use more of a gold, because I have perch. You're from Northeast, like we use perch. Like there's no shad. So if you're from the South and you go, well, why don't you use a shad color? Because I've never seen a shad. I'll never see a shad. We don't have them.
I literally have
a
white chatterbait, a jackhammer that I'm gonna bring down to Gunnersville because I think there's shad there, right?
Right.
Yeah, I've never.
That's it.
When my first time doing it, I always get like green pumpkin and bluegill variants of almost everything.
Yep, because we don't have them.
Yeah.
So it's not something that the predominant forage up here is bluegill and perch.
That's it.
It's not shad. You may get trout eaters.
Yeah,
but that's only when they stock them.
Yeah, it's only the stock spots.
Because you can't get they're not eating a full-size trout at that point. They're too big.
Oh, another thing I had for you. That's what I wanted to tell you. So I noticed you said it a couple times too, and I know you have like the what'd you say, the Roadrunner tournaments a lot.
Yeah.
So take a look at Shan. You ever seen Shan the aquatic biologist?
I've heard of him.
Take a look at his board. He's got a relative weight scale. So a guy like yourself would be really good for you, because if you catch a fish, he has like, it's down to science. So like if it's a 14-incher, it should be right around 1.3. So if you go to a lake and you catch a 14-incher and it's like 0.9 or 0.8, you already know that lake is like underperforming. And if you catch 5 or 6 fish at that limit, then you can kind of, I know, not necessarily say, okay, I'm not going to fish there, but you can kind of like,
you have an idea.
I'm going to limit myself on that lake because there's probability in science there's not going to be tanks in there. And that's what you need to win the tournaments. So you can kind of almost, and it's like crazy. Me and my boy have been doing it that towards the end of the year, because I just got the sticker. And like my Lake X is truly a Lake X.
Yep.
Like I caught I think, what was it? I think it was a 19. And I think a 19 is supposed to be like 3 something, and it was like 4.2. And like by science, I'm looking at it. There's no ifs, there's no buts. Yeah. According to science, you can literally look at it and you're like, oh, wow, okay. There's something special about this lake. It's not just you saying, oh, I catch them, I catch big ones there, I catch big ones. No. Now you know for a fact there's truly something special about that water.
What's funny too is if you ever notice everything in your head's a 3-pounder.
Yep.
That's the number that every bass fisherman gets. PJ's laughing because he agrees. Yeah. For some reason, if it's under 20, if it's under 20 inches, it's a 3-pounder.
Yeah.
I don't know why. If it feels even slightly heavy at all to me, I'm like, it's a 3-pounder. I don't know why. It's just that number that sits in every. And I realized that when I started charting, because there was days where I didn't measure them. So I actually basically will hold them up to my arm and just basically like kind of guess. And I actually my wife actually had one of those like cricket things, and I kind of want to do it again. I had a shirt that actually had a measuring tape that I had down my arm, so I could just hold the fish up my arm. Dude, I thought about it.
I'm thinking about it. Why not?
Like if you did like
I love
12
fishing.
inches.
It's not going to go away.
I ain't got no more room.
Yeah.
I got a long arm. I mean, I could do it. I got something there, but I could do it.
You could do it. Yeah.
I could do it.
I thought about it.
It will hurt. This hurt.
Yeah, that would. Yeah.
It hurt, but I could do
that.
Because the thing is, like this arm's got nothing. This arm's bare.
Oh, it's blank canvas right there.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like I could just
hold it up and be like, yeah.
Like I got.
It's funny that you say that about the science of that though, too. Though it's funny because what's weird about bass though is that 17 to 20. I'm sure if you look at that gauge, the curve, it's like this, and then it's like that. That 17 to 20 mark, man, they grow wicked.
The only reason that I'm laughing, the only reason that I laughed was when I was in Ohio. I literally fished probably every single day of the week. And I fished this one particular lake. I wanted to get to know it. I learned it. And I produced there every single week. And there just happened to be 2 different boat tournaments that was there a Tuesday and a Thursday night. So I was there for both of those there.
Okay.
And I watched a guy catch this fish. And we fished around each other there, and he was catching these fish. And I seen his boat back out there a couple of days later. So I was talking to him. I was like, oh, how did you do? He's like, I was back in here and I caught, 4 3-pounders. Well, I watched him put these fish in his boat. And I'm like, dude, they're like 15, 16-inch fish, because being a tournament director, I was, looking at fish constantly every weekend, right. So I can look at a fish and pretty much see how big it is, even from a distance, not far, but I could tell if you were holding a fish up, if it was a 14-inch fish, if it was a 16-inch fish or an 18-inch, I was within a half inch of that there.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing him put these fish in his boat that day. And then, a few days later, I see him at the launch and we're talking and he's telling me about catching these 4 3-pounders. And I'm thinking, no, dude, they were at best pound and a half. Maybe I'll give you 2, but they weren't 3-pounders. So that's why I'm laughing. Like every single glitter boat guy is a 3-pounder. Every time they set the rod, it's a 3-pounder.
This right here changed my perspective on everything. There it is. So at 15 inches, it's a 1.8. 16 inches is 2.2. 17, 2.7. You got to get to 18 inches to get to a 3-pounder. How many 18-inch fish are in your home lake? There's probably a good amount of them. And then for a 5-pounder, you're talking about 21 inches.
Yeah, but see, that does prove my point, though, because if you look, so like 18 to 20, right?
Yes.
So you go 16 to 18, it's 1 pound.
Yeah.
18 to 20 is 1.3 pound. Like, for some reason, that 18, something about that 18-inch, 17, 18-inch mark, those fish, their weight goes
they start to creep up.
Higher.
Yeah. And then you see the higher end of it. It starts to like really go an inch from 23 to 24.
Yeah.
7.1 to 8.1. And then from 24 to 25 is 8.1 to 9.3.
Yep.
So that's where you can start to see if some of the fish in your lake are stunted. Because if you catch like I feel like people catch 21s, 20 inches, 22 inches, not often, but a good amount, You catch a 22 incher that's a 5-pounder, it's supposed to be a 6.2.
Yep.
Your lake is malnourished.
Yep.
So your chances, like if you're really like, hey, I'm looking for a big one, or if like more or less the way I look at it is when I'm doing my monthlies, I got no problem fishing a bunch of spots in the beginning of the month when I got no fish on the board. When you start to get down to that, like especially, and this is what the KBF, the knucklehead taught me, when I started to get down to that end of the month and I'm looking at everybody else and I'm like, damn, I need a 17-incher. Okay, well, even if I only get one bite, I can't go here. I can't go here. I have to go, like I'll say one of them. I have to go to Rockland Lake. Rockland Lake is a tough fishery. Tough fishery, but there's big ones in there.
That's why I started documenting.
I had to go. I was like, I have to go there. And if that means I got to drag around a Ned rig and, and throw a frog up in the grass and hope something comes up and blows up on it, I have to go. It's not a choice now. Because if I go to the other places, I'm not going to catch I'm not going to catch the quality of fish that I need to try to win.
Dude, it's funny how like kayak guys think in inches though too.
Yeah.
Because and like you were saying about judging fish at a distance. So I was fishing with Bear Fishing and a couple of those collaborations I did. And we did that one day where we did a fake tournament basically. And we were competing against each other. And he goes, how much you think that one is? And I'm like 16.5. And he goes, what? And he puts it on board and he goes, I heard him go, huh? And I was like, how much was it? And he goes, 16.5. And then he gets another one and it was like, how much is this one? And I'm like, 17.25. And he goes, 17.5. But he's like, how the fuck do you know that from 40 yards?
Catching fish.
And I'm like, because when you do a tournament and every minute counts and you look at that fish, you have to be able to know, is it worth me taking that freaking measuring board out, throwing it on that board to take a picture of something that I already have?
Yep.
Now, granted, I burned myself because I have actually thrown fish back and then caught another one that was basically the same size and cold. So I could have had 2 coals instead of 1 coal.
Yeah.
And I've done that. I burned myself.
Put them all on the board. Put them all on the board.
During a tournament, I do now because of that event. And I looked back, and the reason why I know the fish was the same size is because I have video. So then I go look, and I'm holding that fish up, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at like where it landed on my arm. And then I'm looking at the next fish that I actually measured, and I'm looking and I'm like, fuck. I cost myself a 1/4 inch, half inch probably by not throwing.
And that's where it happens. And you're going to kick yourself in the ass when you lose by 0.25, and you're like.
Ask PJ, I lost a couple of them by half an inch. Dude, and it was like.
It hurts, man.
So the one tournament I did, it was like literally every spot was a 1/4 all the way down to the money. So like 1/4 inch of fish.
So he ended up beating you by like 1.5 inches, but he only beat you by like 0.25 on each fish.
Yep. So if I had just weighed everything or measured everything.
You might have been. Yeah, that's one of those ones. That's one of the. Hey, look, it sucks. It sucks, but that's the learning lesson. Now, what do? You probably put everyone on.
Everyone.
And take a picture of them all. You take the second. It's
the other thing I learned, a little trick I learned too to keep track of them all, is I take a picture of the fish and then my foot.
Okay.
So my camera roll, I have a foot divider between each fish because I'll take 2 or 3 of each fish just to make sure I get one that's not blurry. So I'll be like snap, 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 foot. So I got like I got like 150 pictures in my film roll of like the edge of my kayak or my toe or my paddle or.
I honestly I get lost when I had a spot where I caught like my first 3 fish were between 14 and 14.25, and I was like, am I posting the same fish? Am I going to get DQ'd because I made a mental mistake?
And that's why I started going boom, boom, boom. Just like flip it up and just take a picture. Even if it's a blurry photo, it gives you that separator in your camera.
Oh, good idea.
It's a little cheat code because otherwise, as a director, I'm sure you can tell, like, there's a reason why they have you put the fish on the left side only, and because they can tell. You look at a fish, you can be like, yeah, that's got a weird thing on it. But when you're looking at that tiny little thumbnail on your freaking camera in the lake, it's almost impossible to really tell if it's the same fish or not. And at that point, for me, I'm just not going to submit it where it could be. Maybe I did.
Yeah, that's where I was at too. That's exactly where I was at.
See, whenever you're a director and you have access to we used, KBF.
Yep.
So whenever you go in there and you guys submit your pictures on there, there's actually a magnifying glass.
Yes.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. So we can go in there and, you just said, you had, 3 14s or 3, 14.25 or 14, so we can go in there. You may have duplicate sizes, but you can go in there and I can physically mark a spot on one of the fish. It might have a unique bar, or it might have something on the gill plate or something. Just a different uniqueness to that fish. I can count the lines over and mark that. So then the next one to be another 14-inch fish, I can put that down there. Yeah. And I can see, okay, he submitted 2 different fish, or he submitted 2 14s, but they're 2 different fish. So when
That's how you know I never tried to cheat. No, I never even thought about that. That's crazy.
Oh, trust me. I mean, there's so many people that try to get away with different things like that there. But I mean, and I'm sure I've never used the Fishing Chaos, website for judging in that. There's just been the KBF.
They have the same feature on there. There's a
so yeah, I'm sure
on the Fishing Chaos. As another angler in the tournament, I can dispute someone's fish. Like I can bring I can pretty much like set, if you're an admin, I can like say, hey, come look at this.
Yeah.
Like I can dispute a fish.
And you can do that on KBF as well. There's always there's a dispute period from the time the tournament ends until the time of the payout, and each tournament is different. So any angler can dispute. You may see me out there fishing and say, hey, he was bent down in the weeds for 15 minutes. Did he have, a fish in a bucket over there or something? You know what I mean? Yeah. You need to investigate this so that, they'd have to come to me and investigate it, see, do I have any cameras? If there's anybody else that had any pictures of me or see me in that area. So, I mean, there is a dispute area mostly in all tournaments that you can go back and look at those kinds of things, because anytime you add a person, human, and money, there's air for trying to cheat. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Yep.
But I mean, whenever you put those pictures, it is great.
People do it. What I don't understand, and maybe it's just because I was an athlete in school, so I'm competing in fishing just to satisfy the competitive. Like,
yes, I need it.
I want to win.
Yeah, that's all it is.
I'm not going to do anything to manipulate my score to win. I want to be able to walk out of there with the pride that I want, not I cheated better than this guy. Like that's just how I am. And at the end of the day, like unless you're doing a Hobie or you're doing the BASS or any of those, you're not making money at grassroots tournaments. You're basically breaking even on the gas money.
Yeah.
Like even a like bigger grassroots tournament, by the time it's all said and done, once you pay your entry fees, you buy all your equipment, you're fishing, like you're probably going to break even on what you paid to get in and what you paid for the season.
The bad part is about a grassroots too. 90% of them, if you're cheating like that, you're stealing from your friends.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's the crazy part too. You know all those guys. You've been fishing.
You know them week after week. Yeah. You know
fishing them for years, and now you scum them out.
Yeah.
It takes a different type of person to do something.
It does. Yeah.
And again, why? I don't care. Like I don't like. I placed the best I placed was third in a tournament, and I was super happy. Now I got my ass kicked and blanked in a bunch of other tournaments.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I didn't look at that like, oh, I need to cheat to win. I did tournaments because I wanted to. I'll be honest, and it sounds cocky as shit, but like I have a bunch of Lake X's around here, and I could go. Last year, this year was a little different. We had a lot of flooding. New York kind of got the same thing. We got pounded with rain in the Northeast, and it fucked up all the lakes. Like the lakes up here had so much runoff that the smallmouth aren't even biting. Like I think they're messed up from it because they're not used to being like the smallmouth up here are sight oriented.
Yes.
They're not using their lateral lines. They're using their sight, and they can't see. So they're way more tentative the way they hit. They're not like smallmouth. I equate them to pit bulls. When they see something, they go into kill mode and they destroy it. Now, since the flooding happened, they're like bluegill. They're like nipping at bait. It's like they're coming at it, but they're not pounding that thing and shooting out of the water like a freaking shamu. Yeah. So, like literally, I started doing kayak tournaments because, to be honest, there was a couple of lakes around me, like that one I said that I caught almost 200 inches at. I can go there any day in the summertime and catch 10 largemouth. No problem. I can go to a lake that's 30 minutes from my house. There's a good chance I'm going to catch an 18 to 19 inch bass regular. But I wanted to see where I stack up against other people.
Yep.
And there's the KBF scene here is 3 competitors every month. That's it. That's all that's in our challenge series. There's 3 dudes and 1 dude wins every time. And I will say they may have those abilities to vet those fish, but I could tell you right now, the same half-eaten bag of fucking chips was in 3 photos of that guy when I was competing against him on the same fish with the same mark on the neck. So whoever was vetting the fish for that particular tournament was not doing a very good job.
Probably not paying attention.
And I disputed one of them, and nothing came of it. They didn't even email me or reply to me or even acknowledge the fact that I disputed that fish.
I know it sucks to say it. Unfortunately, you live in a state where they don't give a damn about.
There's 3 competitors. There's no money being made, and they don't give a shit about it. So they're approving all the fish and pushing them through. I didn't bother.
30 guys, I think, in there. I think actually New York, I think, is kind of pretty big, actually.
New York's pretty big. Yeah. There's actually quite a bit. Honestly, so we're getting a Slay Nation trail here next year, supposedly. I was supposed to bring one here last year, and I couldn't get anybody to sign up, and then I got busy and life kind of got in the way, so I just kind of stepped down from it.
Hard.
A guy reached out to me because of my YouTube channel and knew that I was going to do it last year and asked me a bunch of questions, and he signed up with Frankie for doing it next year. I'm really hoping he does it. But if he doesn't, I'm not going to lie. I've considered, because most of the tournaments are once a month. And there's a bunch of different little KBFs in New York. There's a bunch of little like small trails that are through KBF that are like grassroots trails, but they use the KBF membership and all that.
That's how mine is too.
And I thought about just doing one of those just to compete. Because I know Daniel's doing one too, which is kind of cool. It's a monthly. It's like the KBF, but it has an actual angler of the year. So it's going to be a nationwide.
I want an AOI.
And that's So I'll send you the details on it once he gets it running. But it's going to be, the only thing that sucks is he's starting it early.
What's early?
Like February, March.
Oh.
And I'm like, I actually asked him, and I don't know if he thought I was serious, but I kind of was. I'm like, so it's a kayak only, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, so if I'm sitting on my kayak on the ice jigging through a jig hole, does that still count?
He didn't answer.
He didn't answer because I'm like, technically I'm in a kayak, and I know I can catch bass in the ice if I'm good at it. I'm in my kayak, like. Yeah. I'll bring out a fucking cheap. I'm not bringing my Old Town out there, but I've got an old Sun Dolphin I could drag out there and just sit in it on the ice.
Yeah. That's
technically, I'm kayak fishing, right?
Yeah.
So I gotta.
You gotta bring the Sun Dolphin out to the sketchy middle part of the lake where the ice actually starts to like taper off. And,
so his is going to be a nationwide, but I'm almost thinking if he can like break off the Northeast, then maybe start the Northeast division later.
Yeah.
Because we can't do February because he's in Georgia, so it's like for him February is spawn probably, you know.
So that was the good thing about the knucklehead is they actually like you said, the guys that were up north, they didn't start their qualifying months until I think the first one was like May.
Right.
It was like May, June, July, August. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to him because I would love to do that. Because being able to do a monthly with an AOY would be cool. Yeah. Most of them don't have. They're just the month's over. Now you'd start the next month. They don't really care. It doesn't really like do any cumulative points or anything. And I think that would be cool.
That is very interesting.
That's now nationwide. It's a little shitty because if we got to compare, if I've got to compete against guys that are fishing OHIV, I'm fucked.
Yeah, it's over. GG's. Honestly, so running Knucklehead, that's what I was telling you when we were talking about it. You got to watch whose group you picked because, like, I couldn't. My first time competing, I competed in. So I qualified for Team Flanders. I qualified for another northern guy up in Michigan, Paul Glass, over with the Aggressively Average Anglers. The reason I picked that team was because I saw a bunch of other northern guys in it. I competed it for Gramps. I think the best I got was like 6th or 7th. Like I was still in it, but then Antoine beat me. We caught like a 23 incher, you know, like I was like, yep, there we go. That's gone. Yep. I'm out of that, you know. Then I think John Long's a hammer. He had straight 22s, I think, one of his bags. 22 better. I'm like, God, but he's down in Florida.
Yep.
You know, he's literally catching a strain of bass that I've never even touched. I've never touched the southern strain of bass. Never even touched one. I'm gonna go do that my first time, in 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, I'm gonna go do that for the first time. But
Yep.
And then that even like that put me down another rabbit hole, because then I was like, okay, now I want to get into the science behind it. I want to see the science. So like southern strain bass get longer quicker, but they don't get as thick as northern strain bass.
They're not as heavy. Yep.
Yeah, northern strain bass get heavier and thick, but they stay shorter. So now that's why I'm like, okay, so like going back to this stupid little scale thing here. So these guys are catching, you can catch a 23, 24, but instead of it being 7 pounds like it should be, or 8 pounds like it should be,
4.5.
It's a 4.5, 5 pound, 6 pound stunted out fish, I guess you could kind of say, but it's super long.
Yep.
So it's like, that's why you see some of these fish like down south and they're whoa, and then the belly's like the size of my hand.
Yep.
But then I catch a fish up here up north and I'm like, holy crap, holy smokes, this thing's a freaking unit. It's a 19 or it's a 20.
Dude, I was catching largemouth today that were probably 16 inches, but they looked like a smallmouth. They were symmetrical from face to tail. Like they were like literally football shaped all the way through, and because they're doing that feed bag thing for, their bellies are all distended. Like I was squeezing their bellies and I could feel like the bait fish in there. Like, but that's the thing is like, that's the other thing that's funny is like, you think about bass fishing differently as a kayak angler, because there's some lakes that I fish that the bass aren't heavy, but they're long. So I'll fish those lakes for like monthlies, because I'm like, same thing. Like you said, I don't care if they weigh 5 pounds. If they're 20 inches, I don't give a shit if it's a 5 pounder. It's still 20 inches.
That's it. That's all that matters. It changes your perspective, because like you said, this last year, I lost my scale. I don't think so. I lost my scale maybe like 2 or 3 weeks into the season. I didn't get a new scale until Amazon Day.
Yep.
So it was, it was like, because I had the board, I was like, I don't need it.
I got one around here that I bought a good one, like the Rapala one.
Yeah.
Tournament grade with culling and all that crap. And it wouldn't turn on this year. Wouldn't turn on. New batteries, nothing will work. I have a spring scale I bought on Walmart, and that's pretty much like what I use, because in my opinion at this point, and this is where I'm going to piss off a lot of bass boat guys, because bass boat guys live or die by the poundage. But here's the thing. That 17-inch bass in June weighs 4 pounds, 3 pounds, whatever the scale says, right?
Yeah.
In August, that bass weighs a pound less than it did during
the spawn. It weighs 2.7.
So that bass is probably 2 in the middle of the summer, because he's cruising around, his metabolism's higher, but he's still 17 inches. So my opinion, length is more of a benchmark for what you caught, because as he gets older, he's going to get longer.
And throughout the year, they fluctuate in weight.
But they always fluctuate in weight.
Said, that one, if you catch a fish right after it's on the feed, and you say, "Oh wow, I just like in the last 3 days, this fish just ate double its body weight," and you catch it and it's got an extra 0.5 inches food in its belly, you're going, "Oh my god, I just caught a tank." Meanwhile, he just didn't digest his food.
Fact is, dude, they can change a lot too, because I caught the same fish back-to-back weekends. I know I caught the same fish because he had the same freaking hole in his nose. Like I knew, and it was the same dock. Like it was the same size fish, same dock. Pretty sure it was the same fish, and it was a half pound different the next time I caught it.
Yeah.
Because he probably had gorged himself on crawdads that morning.
Yeah.
And had that much crawdad in his belly than he did, the next time. So length, in my opinion, is a more accurate,
more true statement.
Because you know that fish isn't going to get shorter.
Yeah, exactly. So, yep.
What's your PB, PJ? I never asked you this.
22.
Dude,
largemouth.
Huh? I've never got that. I don't think I've gotten a 22. 21 and a quarter, I think, is the biggest I've had.
On the board, I think I'm at, I don't know if I hit 21, but I definitely hit 20. But yeah, I think somewhere in that 2021 on the board.
The funny part though is where you're fishing, dude. What's funny is where you're fishing, the state you're in you go further north, that number goes up. Like the fish down they're there, but you get up into the Adirondacks and some of those places, dude. There's freaking monsters.
Yeah.
In lakes.
Technically, I'm in the whack part of New York. Well, I live in New Jersey. I live like right across the border, but
right. You're in like the stunted area where like where fishing isn't as popular. So
like I'm in the whack part of New York. I fish the whack part of New York and New Jersey. Like even like good fishing, like Iconelli's fishing is like 2 hours away from me.
Right.
And then like Bailey and like all the nice like St. Lawrence River and all that good stuff is like 6-8 hours away from me. All the good stuff it's far. So I'm in the where I moved to, it's kind of whack. I got to drive like 30-40 minutes just to get to like a nice fishing spot, which I think is.
So it's funny because you're in that, and then I live in a state where like you can drive for an hour and not see people.
Yeah,
so it's like I've been in places, dude. I have to use a GPS, not because like I honestly can't. I don't know how to do directions because I grew up in a state where directions are so you go up the road and there's this old barn, the roof is like half caved in, you take a right there, and then there's Jim, he's always working on his snowmobile, you take a left at his house. Like that's directions. There is no cross streets. Like we don't have like there's literally where I grew up there was 4 middle roads in the same town. Every road that was between 2 roads was middle road. So like if you called the police department or fire department, you had to tell them which middle road you were in conjunction to the main highway because they would get lost finding your house because we didn't have E911 or any of that shit.
Jesus.
So like and where you are, there's no cell service. So when you get to some of these lakes, your phone goes into airplane mode basically the entire time you're there. So you have to like GPS your way in. If you don't know how to get back and forth, you're screwed because you can't call up the map to get home. And it's like woods. Like you're just like I've been fishing and seen bear on the edge of the water and deer running around. Like, you know, we see bald eagles like swooping down in the lakes and stuff. So it's rural as hell. So it's like for me hearing like how you guys have to like I've seen like a lot of the stuff that people do like down by you, and it's like they're fishing basically what I would consider like a sewer. Like it's not really a river, you know, like it's not.
And then meanwhile,
some places in Jersey
is like by me, and there's like a highway on this side of the river, and then it's like the most rural, like like almost not suburbs where it's like 3-story apartments, 4 or 5-story apartments, just lined up like a town. Just all down the whole side, and then here I come with my kayak and my car, and I park and slide into the river in between both of that, you know. And the whole time I'm fishing, I can hear cars.
Dude, that's got to be awful for content side, dude, because the audio is got to be all jacked up.
Like actually, so some of it's kind of funny because like I have a video on my thing. This guy literally stopped in traffic. Oh, pull that fucker up. Let me see him. And I put the picture. Let me see the picture. Holy shit, brother, you made my night. Holy shit. And people are behind him beeping. And he's like, like, you know, he was just hyped that he saw somebody catch a fish.
That's awesome.
You know, and I'm literally like, I've almost gotten hit by a car. Like literally like right behind me. There's like my heels. I got big feet. My heels in between my heels and my feet. My heels are on the white line. Like the border of the road. And then like I'm leaning on the barricade because the lake is right in front of me and it's like steep right there. It's like a 5'6", like a little drop off into the lake. So I'm leaning on the banister, casting, catching fish, and traffic's right behind me.
Dude, that's nuts.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's like my buddy Bear Fishing, dude. He lives in Montreal. And it's the same thing. Dude, he's fishing fucking like drainage canals.
Yeah, I want to go to Central Park.
Dude,
I've never done it.
He's catching sturgeon in drainage canals.
Yeah.
And like drum and like smallmouth and stuff. And I'm like, why are they even in there? But like he's catching them.
You'd be surprised. They
just
need
fish. In Florida, the little canals.
Oh yeah, that's all they fish.
That's all we fished the whole time down there for peacocks. I was like,
Yep.
You're walking in people's
Arizona's like that too.
backyards. What's that?
Arizona.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because Arizona's a desert, so there's only water where they like make it to go. So like you're fishing. I went out there for a bachelor party, and I like, oh, let me check Fish Brain while I'm out here just to see. And I'm like, dang, there's no water, but there's like so much water around, but there's no water. I can't see it. And I click it and like zoom into the picture, and the guy's holding the fish up, canal in the back, canal in the back, and I'm like, oh, so that's dang. It's just they just fished the canal that's like got water in it. I'm like, wow, that's
dude, it's nuts because it's funny when he comes here because he comes across the border. He fishes with me quite a bit now because I convinced him to come down, and like he's like, dude, you don't understand like how awesome this is, and to me it's like my backyard. Like I don't think about it like that until like I see his videos, and he's like you said, he's like literally leaning on a guardrail, and there's people like going to work behind him. Like there's literally people walking behind him.
Yep. I gotta drive Harriman State Park. I gotta drive up to a state park like 30-40 minutes, or I go to a state park in New Jersey, and like that's the only reason. And then even at that state park, there's an only time I can get like away is when I go to my Lake X, and it's because I go back a trail 1.5 miles, then people are just pretty much too lazy to go back there.
Dude, it's funny too is where people will go. Like for me, and I think more so because when you start doing content creation too, it creates this, you don't want to fish the same places all the time.
Yeah.
You want to do something different to make a different type of video. Yeah. Like I started chasing smallmouth honestly because if I type in Vermont smallmouth, I'm going to get views by default because people are like, oh my God, it's Vermont. I got to see the smallmouth. Like they care about that. Like, so it's like, but I'll drive 3.5 hours in the state I live in to go fish a lake for a day trip. Like, and it's like, I wouldn't do that for any other reason.
Yeah. It's just because I don't want people to be like, oh, he's corny. He's fishing the same spot all the time. Of course you can catch him if you fish the same spot all the time, So like even me, I tried to do like a state park series. I kind of started that up so I can say, hey, I'm at this state park. Like, I don't mind saying I'm at a state park.
Right.
If you want to go to a state park, it's a state park.
You're not giving away a secret if you're going to a state park. Everybody's fishing
a state park. Like everybody's fishing there anyway. But so I kind of just started doing that just and like not to be like cocky or anything, but like you said too, like I just do it for like some validity, I think it's, and I've said this from the beginning when I very first started YouTube, I don't want to tell people what to do. I want you to see what I'm doing and say, okay, hey, that's working for him. I'll call out the baits I'm using. I'll do all that stuff until I've won something, until I've put some money in my pocket for real, or I beat X amount of people who I see as way better than me. I'm not going to tell y'all what to do, until I can say, hey, maybe once I get my AOI, I can say, hey, look, I crushed it this year doing this. Maybe you guys should try this, but I'm never going to be like, hey, do this. You see way too many channels on YouTube, not knocking anybody who does it. Good for you. I'm glad you got your views, all that stuff. Good for you. I'm not knocking nobody else's grind, but you see way too many channels pop up. Hey, do this. Top 5 baits. Do this. Throw this. With all due respect, who the hell are you? What have you won? How much money have you gotten? Where's your livelihood? Do you still have a regular job like me? Because YouTube's not supporting me. I still go sell cars. So I'm not knocking nobody, but you just see it everywhere. Top 5 baits. Throw this. Do this. Throw that. Do this. You're not tactical bassing. You don't have a boat full of baits. Like they literally are trying everything just to try to give us some. And they, that's the difference. They tell you that they've been doing it for 20 years.
And even them. So they're actually why I started YouTube.
To a certain
extent. The reason I started YouTube is because I live in Vermont, and you can probably say the same thing because of where you fish. I was watching a spring buyer's guide, right? And I was watching, and they have, and I think they realized it in the last 2 years because
I know where you're going.
2 years ago, they were like, this is a great discount combo. Shimano Corrado with a St. Croix rod. And I said, you've got more in that fucking rod than I have right here.
Yep.
In all of those rods.
Yep.
And that's not a discount combo. That's a $250 rod and a $300 reel.
Yeah.
And I've got Abu Garcia Black Maxes that I'm catching
All
5-pounders
right,
on the regular for $40.
Yeah.
So then I watched a video where they were like, oh, this time of year you need to drag a 16-inch bullworm. If I throw a 16-inch bullworm on a hook in Vermont, the fish are going to the other side of the lake.
Yeah.
Because they've never seen a 16-inch fucking anything.
Yeah.
That they're going to eat.
Can't
so
do
I
it.
started my channel with, like, this is how you fish Vermont. Because that's the thing that people don't realize is that watch YouTube. And 90% of it is south of Tennessee. And it is shad colors. You need to use this shad profile.
Yep.
You need to use a gizzard shad.
Yep.
I've never seen, I don't even know what a gizzard shad is. Never seen it.
Never even seen a gizzard shad.
So you have to fish your area. And that's why I'm specific when I say in my videos, this is what I do. Maybe it'll give you some ideas on your lake.
So you ready for this?
I have no desire to tell you what to do.
There's one lake in this whole in the 2 states that I fish, New York and New Jersey. I found one lake that I Googled with shad in it. They stocked it. Then they had a shad problem, and now they stock wipers to try to bring the shad count population back down because it got too crazy. Yep. One lake, and it's a reservoir, and and you can't even put a boat on it.
Yep.
Oradell Reservoir.
Yep. Yeah.
Only lake around here that has shad on it, and you can only fish it from the bank in certain designated areas, and you have to pay for the pass.
Yep.
So it's not even like, oh, I can go throw my kayak on that. Let me go bring a chatterbait or a spinnerbait. They're schooling. Like I saw them, and this is what piqued my interest on that. I saw bass for the first time ever chasing shad. And it was so weird to me because I had never seen it ever in my life. And I'm like, I'm like, what's all that jumping over there? Yep. And I'm trying to cast to it. I'm like, wait a minute, it's moving. I'm like, are they chasing bait out in the middle of the lake? Why are they doing that? What is that? I've never seen that. I've seen it up shallow because they're chasing bluegills.
Yep.
You start to see you start to see, oh, you're like, oh, look, something's chasing bluegills up shallow. I've never seen it out deep. And I'm like, but I can't even cast to them. They're not chasing nothing out that far. And I Googled it, and sure enough, there's shad in that lake. And I'm like, oh, I just saw that was the first time, maybe last year, I think it was. Yeah, because I didn't get that pass because those lakes, they don't fish well from the bank. Yeah. And that was the first time I ever seen it. And I was like, wow, one lake around here was shad.
Now, is that just, I wonder if that, PJ, you said you were from Ohio. Did they have shad in Ohio?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay. So it must be a Northeast thing then, isn't it? Because not a temperature thing, because Ohio's got the same.
That's what I thought it was a temperature thing because apparently shad don't like the cold water.
Yeah.
That's what to my understanding.
That's what I thought too, but apparently not because Ohio's gets just as shit stocked in the winter as we do.
Yeah, we had shad in Ohio and Pennsylvania. I actually use I have a few bull shad that I used, and they just absolutely wreck them.
I mean, we still catch them on white, but it's not like a must for me. I'll go to a bluegill color first. Bluegill
to go with that
most.
Yep.
Because the water is usually clear.
Yep. The whole like you say you won't tell people what to do. That's the other thing is I'll say like I'm using bluegill colored or black blue, but like I hate the guys that are like, oh, it's cloudy, you have to use this color.
Yeah.
Do you?
Saying like I'm not.
Because I could tell you I didn't know that there was colors you're supposed to look at. Like the funny part is the thing I say a lot on my channel and it makes people laugh, but they don't realize how serious I am. The fish don't know that there's rules.
Yeah.
So sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves into this fucking playbook that doesn't exist. Like we think we're supposed to use a spinnerbait in this situation or a chatterbait in this situation, but at the end of the day, using the wrong bait actually could be an advantage, because if everybody else went through there and threw a spinnerbait and you're throwing a square bill, they're probably going to hit that square bill because all they've seen all day is spinnerbaits, and that square bill's different than what they've been looking at.
Yep.
So sometimes throwing the wrong bait is actually an advantage. It's just you are going to increase your odds if you throw the right bait for certain conditions, but there's no rule. And that's why I always I try to say what I caught on, but also like Bailey's perfect example. Bailey, I've watched his progression from when he became YouTube, not just doing Serious Angler, and now he's doing the and it's a sponsor thing. It's an Alex Rudd thing. It's how they all do it, but it's like he went from, oh, we're out fishing deep, I'm using a drop shot, to I'm using an Arc 3 Model 2 medium heavy parabolic on 12-pound Abu Garcia. Like he's got he's giving you the fucking serial number off his reel before he's done giving you it's cool, and it probably helps. And honestly, if I ever get sponsored, I'll probably have to do the same thing. Yeah. But in my opinion, I don't give a shit what model reel you're using. You want to tell me the gear ratio, that might help me, but
the exact reel, I'm not really it doesn't really.
I'm not that particular. I don't give a shit whether you're using Invisex or Strike King fluorocarbon.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the pound test helps, but some of this stuff that they get right down to it, and some guys I guess want those details, but that's not what my channel's about, because I want people to be able to go to Walmart with $100 and be able to go catch 5-pounders tomorrow.
Yeah. That's what I tell all the guys I work with, because they come over, I'll go to my trunk, and if I'm going fishing after work, I'll tie a lure on, and they'll come swinging by and be like, God damn, man, you're really into this shit. Oh my God, it's crazy. Oh, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I do. But and they're like, oh, can I come with you? I'm like, yeah, but you got to buy your own stuff. You're not using mine. I don't do that. Yep. Oh, well, how much does it cost? I mean, I'm like, look, you don't have to My lightsaber is what I call it. My baby is my Dobbins Champion XP, and I got a Shimano Corrado MGL on it. That's the most expensive combo I got, and I would say it right now. I sold the most cars I'd sold in a year and a half. I sold 26 cars in 1 month. I got a crazy bonus. I paid all my bills, and I still had $1,000 left.
Yep.
I gave some money to my girl, and I took care of myself. That's the only reason I did that. You don't need that. You don't need it. I bought it because I busted my ass and I worked hard and I felt as though that I could go buy myself something nice. You don't need it. You don't need it.
Funny? I was saying this to PJ at our last live stream, is what's funny is you think about the stigma of fishermen, right? The stigma of fishermen is redneck hillbillies that are out doing redneck activities, right?
It's not that anymore.
I probably got, I don't know, $400 worth of rods right there with no reels. I probably got 1,000 out of my boat between all the rods and reels I have, and this whole wall is plastics. I spent a considerable amount of money on stuff like plastics that are just going to get shredded and thrown away after they're done.
Yep.
Spend $5 a bag, and on a good day you're going to go through a bag of plastic. It's actually become a sport that the problem is too many people that run the industry have figured out that idiots like me will go out and buy something because they think it's going to help me catch fish, which is why I started doing more. I actually went backwards on my education, because I started at a point where I thought everybody, kind of like what Debo does. That's why I like Debo's channel, is that he's not too big to stop and go, this is how you tie a polymer knot. You know what I mean? Some of these guys are getting into
combo.
Bailey's like that sometimes too, but a lot of times Bailey's talking about he's got fucking $6,000 worth of graphs on his.
Yeah, I love him that, but he's
got a lot of tech, and that's what the guys that are really hardcore, that's what they want, and they want to see that. But I use a Hook 5 that doesn't even have side imaging.
Yeah.
I just don't care about it.
I'm gonna get, that's my goal this winter, is to try to get down imaging and side imaging, but I gotta have.
I want side.
That's all I want, and then I already know the first year I'm not gonna know how to use it at all. I'm going to be looking at it like what the hell is this? And then it's going to take me a couple of years to get good with it. But I just more or less, I just want to know how deep I'm in, water temperature, and like I would like to be able to get to the point where I could say, look at the side imaging and say, okay, there's some rocks over there.
Yep.
Let me cast towards those rocks. I don't want to get to a point where I would love to be able to say, hey, there's a fish, cast to it and catch it. But I just want to see the structure that I can't see. That's what it's all about for me.
And the point I'm trying to make is I think the three of us are all kind of on the same page, is that fishing's what you make it. Because I'll tell you right now, I caught my first 5-pounder on a Hank Parker Lew's rod I bought at Walmart for $25 for the
So you ready for this? I caught my first 5-pounder on a stick and a string because my dad was taking too long to come unhook a bluegill. And I saw the fish, but it was sitting still for too long. Like it must have been injured or hurt because it was sitting right on the bank. And I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that looks like an eye. And I remember being a kid. I remember this moment. I was like, maybe 9 or 10. And I'm playing with the bluegill, swinging it back and forth on a strick and a sting.
Yep.
Boosh.
Yep.
The eye moved. And I was like, ah! And I'm sitting there like, and my dad comes, sprint. What are you doing, boy? What are you doing? Did you fall? And I'm like, and he's like, oh, Jesus Christ. My dad jumps in knee deep, grabs the fish, takes the bluegill out of its mouth. The fish just closed its mouth on the bluegill.
Didn't even hook him. Yeah, he just locked him out. Yep.
Just locked up. My dad is like, my boy's exploded. And he's freaking out more than me. And I'm sitting there. I was scared. I vividly remember, like, you know how like when you first start fishing and you catch a big fish, I was scared. I would feel it in my chest right now. I was scared. And I was like, sticking a string. So,
yeah, it's crazy, dude. Like, that's the thing is I think people, and honestly, my first 5-pounder was on a Senko, wacky rig Senko. Yeah. You can't get, I mean, that whole combination, replacing the line with braid, probably cost me $50, and that's because I bought Power Pro braid to put on. If you use the stock line that came with that reel,
$25.
You're in it for $30 total. Like, that's the problem. That's why I started doing YouTube, because I was like so sick of seeing and don't get me wrong, I'm friends with Bailey, talk to him all the time. I text Mikey Balls all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I talk to some of the bigger YouTube guys. I'm not like, no
hate.
Yeah, like, these guys are sponsored. Like, Mikey isn't really sponsored as much as he just works within the industry, but like Alex Rudd, for example, he's sponsored by Pure Fishing. He makes no like excuses about that. The difference is, and that's why I follow who I follow, Alex Rudd will tell you he's using a fucking jackhammer. He'll tell you he's using a Strike King bait when he's sponsored by Pure Fishing. He's not like, oh, this is where I stop watching YouTube, guys, and this is where I stop paying attention. And this is why I think, honestly, the YouTube world has got a huge boom coming, is that sponsors are starting to realize that they can pay $100,000 to professional fishermen who may or may not be on camera if he's not in the top 10. Or they can take that $100,000, cut it in half, and spread it across 150 YouTubers.
Yep. That's their job.
Or even more. Yeah. Or even more, and just give them free baits. Because honestly, if Pure Fishing were to call me and say, hey, we'll replace all of your rods and reels, and all you got to do is put them on your videos, I'll throw all my shit
I'm in it. I'm in.
Because honestly, if you're going to give me free rods and reels and keep me in rods and reels, and all I got to do is say, I'm using a Berkeley bait and I'm using a Abu Garcia reel.
Sorry, not sorry.
Not a problem. But at the same time, I'm not at that level. So I have literally in my kayak, or in my boat right now, I have a 13 fishing reel. I have Daiwas. I have favorites. I have Shimano's. I have every freaking, matter of fact, I'm buying a prototype rod or reel from Bass Pro Nation. They're doing prototype reels now. I think they're made by Daiwa because I saw a logo on the side of them. But still, like, I'm willing to use anything just to see if it's good, because I like being able to do a review on it and say, guys, buy this. It's $40. I caught a bunch of fish on it. It didn't bird's nest every time I casted. My favorite spinning reel this year was Casking. And I've used fucking Daiwas. I've used Shimano's. I've used Lew's. My favorite reel this year for spinning was a Casking Spartacus 2. $35 spinning reel on a Guggen spinning rod. And I'm not even necessarily a fan of Guggen, but let's be honest. Again, when you talked about the industry, they're kind of the goal. That's the level you want to get to when you're a YouTube creator. That's where you want to be. Whether I'm not going to be doing, Walmart gimmicky
I'm not doing
runs and crap like that, but that's I don't have a favorite brand. Now let's ask PJ because he looks like he's gonna fall asleep on me. Are you brand loyal at all, or do you have like a? I'm not gonna ask Maine because I know that he's secretly sponsored by 6 Cents and they're throwing him money every day to put videos up. But I actually joked about that. I saw a video and I'm like, damn, dude, he's either in love dating someone from 6 Cents or they're paying him to say something.
Nah, I just like them a lot.
Dude, their baits are awesome.
Yep.
But do you have are you brand loyal, PJ, or do you just buy what's on sale?
I sort of kind of am. I mean, I have my favorite rods. I have my favorite reels.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Lew's diehard Daiwa guy. You know what I mean? I love my Tatulas. I mean, if I even see one that's on sale, I gotta have it. I got the 200, I got the 150, I got the 100. I got them across the board.
The 150 I got. It's nice.
Yeah,
it's a damn good reel.
I love them.
They're nice. They're nice.
What's funny is I didn't like them.
I'll go away from it for a while, and then I'll come back to it, and I'll just be like home.
Welcome, old friend.
It's like
feels so good.
It should just, I'm like, some people get it Daiwa because I guess you get that that little bit of the loose feel, I guess you can say, and I'm just like, I feel like every reel does that.
Yeah.
It gets a little worn in and gets a little, I don't know, but I love it. I love the Tattoo 150. I love it.
Yeah.
I have Daiwa CC80s, which are cheap. And I've had those the longest out of any reels I've had. And I am the opposite of most people. I have never done maintenance on a goddamn reel in my life. I buy them. I work them until they fall apart, and then I throw them away and I replace them.
Do you oil them at all?
Never even oiled a reel.
I drop a few drops of oil. That's kind of
weird. No WD-40? You don't
wipe them. At the end of the season, I wipe them down, loosen the drag, and drop a little oil in them. If it looks crazy in there, I'll send them off to I know I got a guy now who was like, yo, send me your reels. I'll clean them for free. Just pay the shipping. So I was
see, if I had that, I would do it. So I had a
So I was like, all right.
What was that Abu Garcia that I had? It was the
I imagine he might do it for you too. I mean, he's cool. I'll have to talk to him.
I had an Abu Garcia Zeta, like $175 reel that failed, and I just threw it out. Because I just it was not working right and it broke. Actually, I have the handle around here somewhere because I took that off because I like the handle. But I am rough on my gear, and that's why I try so many different reels and stuff, because I want to see what they're. I will say, on your Lew's comment, I will say, of all the reels that I own, casting straight fluoro, Lew's does handle. I don't know what it is about their drag system or their spool, but I have a hard time. The way I cast too hard. Like, I think I swing too hard when I cast, and I bird's nest my reels a lot when I'm using fluoro, straight fluoro. The Lew's, I don't know. Now, granted, I did blow one up today, but I was casting into the wind with a freaking 1/8 ounce bait, so it wasn't really a smart move. So that was my own. I was casting into 30 mile an hour wind gusts with an 8 ounce swim bait. Yeah, it not just fun. hit that wall of wind, and it just. But those do seem, because I actually just barely started fishing straight fluoro. I always did braid the leader. I never messed with straight fluoro because most of the places I'm fishing have submergent milfoil. and it's just not worth dealing with the nicks and then snapping it off and breaking it. And I would tie like a 16-inch floral leader, and that was all I did. But what I'm learning about using all these different brands is, like you said, there is nuance, like the Daiwas. That T-wing system is fucking nice. Cool.
It's great. It's great.
That is really good. I do enjoy that.
It's nice. It's just nothing else you could say about it. It's great.
There is nothing like trying to look through that goddamn little tiny hole that Luz gives you while you're on a kayak in the fucking waves, trying to put the line back through that because you broke it off and you had to retie it.
Yep. The T-wing, you go,
yeah, that's a nice thing about those Daiwas.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's so many brands out there that the braking system, I will say the Shimano's, I'm not good with centrifugal braking. I think it's a different skill set to cast those reels. When you have the magnetic braking versus a centrifugal, it's a totally different type of cast.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with the centrifugal style reels.
I like
the hybrid ones that do both. I can do, like the 13 has like the concept, like the hybrid ones that have like centrifugal braking, but I can pop a panel off and like just click a dial. Having to know which tabs to set, I'm not smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I just don't. I just set them all.
You end up having to play with it. That's what that is. You got to mess around with it.
I think if I got into the Corrados, I would like them. But again, it's one of those, I would rather have 3 Daiwa CC80s instead of buying that one Corrado.
Yeah. So that was my mistake, is I was like, I bought a Corrado K and I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. And now once now I'm kind of like stuck where I'm just like, well, what happens if I get an MGL? And now I got the MGL, and now I'm like,
yeah.
Whoa, I'm like, okay, so now I got a 150. I'm like, should I get a 100? It's like,
the problem is, dude, is bass fishing, which is why the industry went the way it did and the way the money is invested in it, is you start out fishing, and I did a video on this, and I was like, this is what you need to start fishing. You need literally a Shakespeare Ugly Stick GX2 with a wacky rig. And go catch bass and just do that. When you are into it like I am, where you spend 16 hours a weekend, you burn. My wife said this to me today while we were driving to town. Literally, I spent every PTO day I have on fishing. I used them all during the summer to take days off to go fishing. I fish in the rain, the wind. I didn't take a day off because of weather. I just fish in a different lake because I know the wind doesn't hit it the same because there's a mountain range, or I can fish this lake because this lake's better because if the wind's from the north, there's a freaking cliff on the north side. I can fish this like I fish every day. So then you start getting into, this is my swim bait rod, and this is my square bill rod.
That's when you
this
go down
is my
the
chatterbait rod.
Yep.
And that is where I want people to not do what I do unless they really love it. Because the problem is, if you start watching all these shows like Tactical Bass and you start watching these guys who, to be honest, they're getting paid because companies are selling product because they used your name.
Yep.
So if you start out fishing and drop $1,000 on rods and you go out and blank, you're going to quit. If you go out there and spend $30 and you blank, maybe I'll go out tomorrow. It was kind of fun. But if you start out spending all that money initially, and then
I joke with myself all the time, and I'm like, I literally laugh at myself, and I'm like, yeah, you got $1,000 kayak. How many baits and lures you got in here? You got 7 rods on my boat, and I caught 1 fish. Damn, Jermaine, you're a nut.
Yep.
But I am. I love it.
14 hours and catch a fucking bluegill.
Yeah. And you're just like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But I don't know. I love it.
Dude, I drove to Massachusetts for 2 tournaments that I blanked in.
Yeah.
So I paid $50 for a membership, $50 to enter in the tournament, drove 3 hours at 3 o'clock in the morning to fish for 7 hours to not catch a fish and place last in a tournament.
And spend your whole Saturday.
And go back. And that's the thing, is like, that's why I try to do what I do on my channel. Like you said, I will never tell someone you have to, in this situation, use a Ned rig. I say, this is what I caught on.
Yep.
This is what I did to catch this fish.
Yep.
This is the weird fucking thing that I did that doesn't make any goddamn sense, but try it.
Yep.
Because it's not going to cost you anything, because I'm doing it with baits that, like, one of the things that I did a bunch of rigging videos, and I actually had people walk behind me and like were watching me do it, was like, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take my wacky rig. I use those like Harmony weedless wacky rigs, the one with like the little metal loop on them. I'll just tie a leader on the bottom of it and make that a drop shot, so I don't have to retie a drop shot. So I just take a freaking piece of line, cut it, tie a half hitch knot on the bottom of your hook, tie a half hitch knot on a hook, and then throw it as a drop shot. Same hook. It's basically the same shape as a drop shot hook.
Yeah.
But now I don't have to cut that line off and retie it. And in a tournament, that saves you from having to retie a whole leader.
Drop shot is crazy. That's why I have trouble throwing it. It takes too long.
And that's why, dude. The other thing you can do, which I've done, and PJ's nodding his head because I feel like because he's a fly fisherman and he's done some weird crap too, is you just take a snap swivel and tie a leader. So you make a snap swivel, tie a hook or tie a snap swivel to one end, make a couple different lengths, tie a drop shot weight on it, wrap it up on a piece of cardboard, put it in your terminal box. So then when you want to switch to a drop shot, you just clip that onto your hook, cast it a couple of times. If you want to go back to the wacky rig, you snap that off. And now you've gone, because if you think about it, a wacky rig hook isn't much different than your standard drop shot.
Yeah, I use the same hook.
So you literally turn your wacky rig into a drop shot for that situation and then just disconnect it. And you don't have to, and that's the kind of stuff that like I try to show, because that doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
You use a piece of line that you already probably cut off when you were tying your knot in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the kind of crap that I try to display, because nobody does that. Everybody talks about you got to use this bait on this body of water because this is the one that catches fish. Well, yeah, but so does an earthworm, but it doesn't mean I'm going to use it.
Exactly.
All right, guys, we are on almost 2 hours. PJ's going to fall asleep.
Yeah, I got to eat some dinner here. I was going to say I got to cut out of here.
I was checking the scores of the football game.
Oh, that's what you were doing? Yeah, dude, I tried to watch the Jets game, but because I'm in Vermont, I got to get the stupid Patriots game, so I had to watch the Patriots get their face beat in by the Dolphins. It wasn't really worth watching.
Yeah.
Hey, the Steelers lost today too, so it happens.
I'm a Falcons fan. We lost too.
See, I'm glad that you're another one of those guys like me, though, because you're supposed to be a Giants or Jets fan.
Yeah, nah.
By rule, you're supposed to like one of those two teams. But
yeah. Falcons it is. Michael Vick, he got me watching football.
Hey, he was a Steeler.
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, he was
a Steeler. Yeah.
He played well over there, too.
Yeah.
I'm a Braves fan for baseball, so I'm really fucked up when it comes to sports.
That is Yankees all day. But
so we can get back and forth because I'm an O's fan. They're in the same division.
See? There we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, we'll have to do this again. And honestly, we should talk about maybe doing a couple tournaments or even pick a freaking lake in the middle somewhere and do a camping trip, dude.
Yeah, we'll do it up. And I'll get you guys on the channel if you want to jump on with me.
Absolutely.
Definitely, please. Thank you.
Lake Erie.
Dude, yeah, we could go to Lake Erie.
Yeah, I'm telling you, schedule it. Let me know. We'll do it. I'm down. As long as it's scheduled, I'm down.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll do that up. We'll probably be on Main's channel at some point too. I know me and him have like talked about getting on lives for
a while,
fucking 4 months now, and it's always like seems like something falls through, or I never really think about asking him. So I was like, you know what, I want somebody to come on Sunday. We're gonna get him on the talk, and obviously it worked because we kept on here for 2 hours. So, but yeah, guys, I'm gonna let these guys go, and I got some more video editing to do because I'm insane, and I don't have enough videos, even though I have one a week until June of 2024. But hey, got to get back to it. So I want to thank you guys for coming along with us. If you guys haven't already, check out Mainstream Fishing. He's on Instagram. He has some YouTube videos. He's all over the place. He doesn't have everything, but he's gonna blow up big, and we all want to try to be one big community together.
Yes, so
So I'm going to end the stream right here, guys. But again, thank you for coming along with us.
Till next time.